Have you ever heard the quote, "Less is more"? Miata is a living example of this. Mazda sold the same amount of Miata as their competitors combined. How did Miata shine among many vehicles that started with the same philosophy? How Mazda perfected the Miata's formula? Don't ask any more questions because we are examining this killer-looking car right now. Give the intro. The lightweight sports car had been around for decades, but Mazda breathed new life into it in the early 80s. Mazda set strict ground rules for their new sports car. It was supposed to have a convertible body with a comfy cockpit, perfect weight distribution, a double wishbone suspension, and it had to fit the driver like a glove. In the late 70s, Bob Hall, known as the father of Miata, embarked on a new career as an automotive journalist at Motor Trend. As a teenager, he'd spent a lot of time in Japan, giving him the opportunity to learn to speak Japanese. His understanding and command of the language enabled him to also act as the Los Angeles correspondent for Motor Fan, a Japanese car magazine. Hall had been surrounded by interesting cars his whole life. His father was a car guy of the highest order, running European machines, including MG, Triumph, Austin Healey, and Alfa Romeo, the purest forms of the light and simple, open-top sports car. But the era Hall found himself in as a young writer was killing off these types of vehicles, with emissions and safety concerns grabbing the headlines. The Japanese were quick to react to these changing times, fielding reliable and economical machines that Americans welcomed with open arms. Hall witnessed the shift firsthand and came to admire the way Mazda persisted with developing sporting models powered by the rotary engine. He couldn't help but think how nice it would be to have a car that would blend Japanese technology and reliability with the fun experience that the British sports cars provided. In April of 1979, Hall had the opportunity to visit Mazda's headquarters in Hiroshima. He was able to tell Kenichi Yamamoto, then head of Mazda's research and development, about his dream automobile, sketching a drawing on a chalkboard and adding notes as he went along, explaining how easy it would be to create a convertible using components from the then current Familia, also known as the 323 or GLC, which had a front-engine, rear-wheel drive layout. Following the meeting, Hall had dinner with Yamamoto. Although he didn't mention his vehicle, he suggested Yamamoto try driving the Triumph Spitfire, a cute little fun British roadster. Finally, everything was ready to make history when the Japanese engineer drove the Spitfire on the picturesque roads around Hakone. As Mazda began to conceptualize what a lightweight sports car could look like, Mazda's two regional R&D centers engaged in a battle of the design centers. Each center would work on their own version of a lightweight sports car and present them to a wider group in Hiroshima. The front-wheel drive and mid-engine coupe concepts were tackled by Mazda's Tokyo studio, while the rear-wheel drive convertible concept was handled by the R&D team in the United States. The full-scale models went through 2 rounds of judgment in 1984 and ultimately led to the win of the US-based R&D team's concept. With the approval of the convertible idea, the concept became clear, calling for a front-engine, rear-wheel drive sports car that reflects the tradition of lightweight sports cars using the latest technology. But there was a problem. Mazda was so tied up with other work, there simply wasn't the staff available to move the open 2-seater project forward. As a result, the company approached International Automotive Design, IAD, an engineering company based in England, to make a running prototype of the proposal. With design and modeling staff from America on hand to supervise the styling, IAD did the chassis work based around the first-generation RX-7, while motivating power and the drivetrain came from a rear-wheel drive Familia. The prototype, which featured red paintwork and a black soft top, was finished in September 1985 and quickly shipped to America. The US R&D staff decided to test the vehicle in Santa Barbara, California, taking extra precaution not to reveal the car's identity. The reaction was encouraging, with people asking questions and admiring the look of the car during the day. It was a good sign and a perfect foundation on which to create 2 more clay models that pointed the way towards the final design. With Kenichi Yamamoto declaring, "This car has an aura of culture," Toshihiko Hirai was appointed the project program manager in February 1986 tasked with bridging the huge gap between ideas seen in the prototype and the harsh realities involved in making them ready for mass production. Hirai, a passionate engineer, was the perfect man for this difficult undertaking. His involvement was a giant step forward in making the MX-5 Miata a reality. Though most of the engineers involved with other pressing projects across Mazda's vehicle range, Hirai was able to build a team where he could and challenged the team to step outside its comfort zone of traditional skill sets. Hirai's biggest rule for the team was to never compromise. Hirai developed Mazda's legendary Jinbaitai philosophy of the horse and rider as one, and he called upon his team to develop a lightweight sports car with the most engaging driving dynamics. Hirai and his team insisted that the car be lightweight with a balanced weight distribution over the front and rear axles, have a low center of gravity, an engine placed as far back as possible, a double wishbone suspension, and easy to use, soft top that never leaks in a million years. While Hirai and his team worked out the driving dynamics of the vehicle, the styling team in Hiroshima built on the design submitted by R&D in America, adding elements of traditional Japanese culture and beauty into the equation, propelling the car closer to mass production. A near-final production prototype was sent to Los Angeles in the spring of 1987 to participate in a public clinic to gauge reaction and solidify pricing and packaging options. A total of 245 people participated and gave the car's concept and design high marks. The high praise and instant obsession with the vehicle was enough to silence any remaining doubts at Mazda's headquarters, and indeed fast-tracked the proposed production schedule. To ensure this was possible, a design freeze was declared in September 1987, and the vehicle moved into its final stages and into production, forever changing the automotive landscape. The MX-5 was officially introduced in February 1989 at the Chicago Auto Show. Upon its release, the car won numerous accolades, such as Automobile Magazine's 1990 Automobile of the Year and Car and Driver's 10 Best list from 1990 to 1992. It initially featured a 1.6-liter inline-4 engine making 116 horsepower. In late 1993, a larger 1.8-liter engine was made standard in most markets. The MX-5 was designed with inspiration from the Lotus Elan, and features such as pop-up headlights, unique to the NA model, and slim chrome door handles pay homage to the famous British Roadster. To keep the weight down, base models were not equipped with power steering or power brakes. A 5-speed manual transmission was standard, with the option of a 4-speed automatic also available. The first-generation MX-5 would go on to be the most popular of the 4 MX-5 generations by a wide margin, with over 228,961 units sold in the United States between 1989 and 1997. The second-generation MX-5 was unveiled in 1997 and put on sale in 1998. While it kept the same proportions of its predecessor, its most noticeable change was the removal of the pop-up headlights, which were eliminated in the face of more stringent regulations. The NB model of the MX-5 underwent revisions. The second generation boasted a slight increase in engine power, a more refined interior with an updated design, and a newly available 6-speed manual transmission. In 2001, further revisions included slightly updated front and rear styling, as well as variable valve timing engine technology for the 1.8-liter engine, which now made 142 horsepower. Updated models have since been known as NB2, while the earlier versions are referred to as NB1. While various special editions continued to be introduced throughout the entire NB production run, the Mazda Speed MX-5 is distinctive for being the only MX-5 to be turbocharged at the factory. The Mazda Speed variant, built for the model years 2004 and 2005, made 178 horsepower from a turbocharged version of the normal 1.8-liter engine, enabling a quarter-mile time of 15.2 seconds and a 0-97-kilometer time of 6.7 seconds. Other Mazda Speed specs include stiffer and shorter springs, Bilstein shocks, and larger 17-inch wheels. In 2006, the Miata brought back some original styling elements from the first generation while adding a new suspension, traction control and stability control, and upgrading the engine to a 2-liter, 4-cylinder engine capable of 170 horsepower. If Mazda had not introduced the new Miata when the production of the NC chassis stopped in 2015, no one would have even noticed that the production of this model had stopped. Today, it is known as the dullest Miata. The 4th generation Mazda MX-5 was unveiled in 2014 and has been in production since 2015. An updated model was introduced in 2019 and is visually identical to the pre-update model. The engine was upgraded to 181 horsepower and a dual-mass flywheel was introduced to the powertrain in the manual transmission. The ND generation introduced a retractable fastback variant that features a rigid roof and buttresses that give the silhouette a more coupe-like appearance than the soft-top convertible. In addition, the car is the basis for the Fiat 124 Spider and Abarth 124 Spider. Mazda has proven, for better or worse, that less is more in all 4 generations and has written its name in golden letters in the history of sports cars.